we will be able to go in three directions. One direction is, as I wrote myself, the world we live in. The second direction is the world we create, or where are we moving. And the third one is the power of the ecosystem, and briefly to say, just the opportunities that we have and we should be looking at. But before I start, I'd like to use the chance. It's very much boring from my point of view for me to present you guys and explain what do you do, why do you do, etc. Let's not have this 10 minutes, stand-up comedy that like I'm super awesome, but each and every of you have some connection with the startups, right? You hate them, you like them, you work with them, you work for them, you work against them. So if I can ask you guys just to briefly explain this amazing hall full of people, like, what are the key questions that those people could approach you during this summit? Can I start from you?
I feel like I'm being thrown under the bus with your questions already.
It's fine. I have like 29 other questions.
All right,
prepared.
Perfect. So what I can be helpful with?
Let's start from what do you do?
Okay.
Why do you get paid? And then how and why should people approach you?
Okay, great. So I get paid because I'm the global operations lead for Google for Startups, strategy and operations, that should say, which is basically, it's Google's startup outreach program. I've been talking about it yesterday, so some of you may have heard yesterday. What we do, we run a bunch of really cool programs. We run a bunch of accelerator buildings, which I'm co-responsible for. And basically what we're trying to do is really support startups to grow, ideally on Google technology. The reason why I do what I do is because actually I'm a total imposter. I would love to be a founder myself, but I just haven't had the balls yet. So I feel like there's this big company who's willing to pay me some money to hang out with founders and to do a good thing for founders. So that's why I do what I do.
Elias, thank you for honesty, and I'm doing an accelerator for 3 years already, and each and every mentor that usually come from the big corporates, there is a time when you sit down, have beer, being open, transparent, and I say, like, I look at the person and say, like, you are thinking of doing a startup yourself. I say, like, how do you know? I say, like, that's the main reason you're here. So, like, why? Because it's easy to test your ideas with someone else's money, right? That's beautiful. Thank you so much for being honest. David, what's your take on this? You're a founder.
Yeah, I'm a founder, so I don't get paid. That's basically it.
First 2 years.
Yeah, seed stage. So still some room to go. So I'm the co-founder of an audio app called Anyone. It's a really radical and megalomaniacal idea where you can get 5 minutes of anyone's time. So it's one-to-one voice calls, basically, totally disrupting the calendar, the email, and the DM interaction as we know it. And I'm happy to chat, how you survive through the early stage, pre-seed and seed, how you grow a team to 12 people in 12 weeks and survive that. And also how you deal with the fact that you're all of a sudden burning so much money every day and have this clock ticking down until your next round. And there's an 80% chance that you're going to fail. So happy to talk about any of those things.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
So I represent Startup Lithuania, a national startup ecosystem facilitator in Lithuania. So me personally, I work with foreign startups, so with attraction. Also, I help and consult them about relocation processes of landing. I also coordinate Startup Visa program. So a program which is meant for non-EU startup founders who wish to relocate to Lithuania, establish their business, and scale to Europe. So really, if you are thinking about entering European market, you can approach me and I will be happy to assist you.
Amazing. And last but not least, the person that owns capital.
Hello, I'm John. I used to be a startup founder myself. Previously started 2 startups and exited them. since 2014, I'm more on the investor side, working with startups at seed stage. I previously founded a seed fund, did 12 investments and achieved 3 exits through that. Now currently working in a bigger fund. Hopefully it will be ready to invest towards the end of the year, and we're targeting $70 million for the whole fund size, targeting pretty much the region, seedstars URU Capital. I can help you through my personal first-hand experience as a founder myself, and also I've come across a lot of success stories and failure stories as well over the years as an investor, as a mentor as well. So more than happy to share my findings and insights about the whole ecosystem and this startup journey, let's say.
Amazing. Do you have a focus of your fund?
It's a regional fund.
Okay.
We have kind of an inclination towards AI solutions, but not totally just stick to that. I mean, we have the regional mandates, but we're going to invest in several verticals as well.
Okay, understood. Thank you so much for that. So, guys, now you know who are the people sitting on the stage and what can you do with them after our panel. And let's move on to the things we wanted to discuss today with you together. We have 45 minutes, a bit maybe less. And the rules are very simple. It's a game, right? So if anyone wants to add something, if anyone wants to oppose anyone, you're free to do. And let's have some blood on the stage. I love it. I love it. It always works. Okay, but let's start from as I said, like the world we live in today. So everyone knows the drill, right? In some very interesting countries, someone ate a bat, closed down the country, the world then, and now we're living in something very different. My question is, with economies being stopped, with countries being closed down, with travel bans, etc., etc., so what is the world we're living today? Is it a new normal? Is it a never normal? I'm just back from another conference that some very intelligent investors say, like, it was never a normal world, so why are you so surprised? So what is happening today? And is there anything that actually changed? Or we're just like, we're speaking in the conferences how everything is different, but basically it's the same drill. Jean, maybe I can start from you. Like, you're an investor. How do you see the ecosystem, the world, and the startups? Has anything changed?
Sure. I mean, first of all, the overall investment appetite moved towards the tech. The reason why is with the pandemic, while everybody was confined within their homes, it proved to be one of the safest bets among the investment alternatives. So we see that a lot of private equity or some really high net worth individuals had nothing to do with the tech investments before, now looking into this vertical. And I expect it to increase because pandemic actually worked as a catalyst for tech adaptation as well, especially for some categories like, let's say, on-demand grocery services that created dark stores, or on-demand food services that created new categories like dark kitchens. These changes will stay with us for sure. And some other verticals as well, like e-learning, it got affected a lot. I'm also teaching at the university, and my course was pretty much far too hands-on with workshops and all that. But I got, I proved to be quite successful doing it online as well with Miro and Zoom and both of their integration as well. So it's going to stay with that too. And we had a chat about China. One of the reasons that China actually, on tech crackdown, they nationalized e-learning facilities, e-learning startups, because they discovered that change will stay and they will have a very strong impact. And education is actually something that can form opinions and ideals of people as well, just as a side note. And also we've seen a lot of remote work and services for remote work applications like Microsoft Teams, Slack, that kind of stuff. They're gonna stay with us. I think that we will see a lot of people continuing to be working remotely as well. That will stay for sure. It also increased the demand for cybersecurity because everybody's, connecting through cloud to the company resources and servers and all that. We also see significant change, and also telemedicine. That became huge because people were scared to go hospitals due to pandemic, and they tried to do their preliminary level 1 checkups with doctors through online channels as well. So definitely some changes will stay with us. But with some, we will go straight back to normal. That's my guess is.
David, you're a founder. You're speaking with the founders. How was last 18 months for your fellow founders and the ones that did survive? Did they pivot, or they managed to stay on the business as usual? Of course, I'm not speaking about Bolt, and all of the companies that before the ACBC, before Corona, they actually were investing into something that will be delivery or on-demand services.
Yeah, I mean, I guess last spring was kind of a stark reminder that liquidity is important and that cash is real. Thing is, what followed on after that, something completely opposite happened. Like, after realizing that cash is real, we all realized that money is not real because we printed a shit ton of it. I mean, is it like 30% of all US dollars ever in circulation have been printed in the last 18 months? I mean, what happens to the markets when that kind of capital...
It's on my question list. We will speak about that.
Am I going in advance? So I would say, as a founder, it's never been better. Those who survived the spring, those 8 weeks of drought, those who managed to extend their runways, are in a great place. I think my main advice to anyone setting out in the beginning of their career is to become a founder, because the access to cheap capital is absolutely ridiculous right now. So to your point, you can really try ideas in a new way. That's the short answer.
Amazing, amazing. I would love to double up on this, because the only thing I actually tell to people, the pandemic actually moved, it forced some of my friends that used to be a very much corporate people to invite me for a coffee and say, like, I'm sick of everything. I want to do something new. And I always tell them that's the best time you could ever expect. But Akvile, I want you to also share a bit of insights, because you're working with ecosystem. Okay, you're working with one ecosystem, but you definitely you look at other ecosystems. Is it a reality that what is happening, that everyone is full of cash, the capital is so easy to get, and you just need to do something to get it? So what was your approach on that, and do you like the world that we're living now?
It's not about me actually now, because we're talking about startups, and from my experience, like startups, even if I take Lithuanian startups, really borders collapsed, and many good opportunities for attracting investments without leaving your own home. In front of the screen, you can pitch your ideas to investors, for example, in USA, and we have really good examples. And for instance, our ecosystem never been off track, so we really attracted records of investments this year. If we compare this year, in the first quarter, we already have 300 millions of investments attracted in Lithuanian ecosystem, when in 2019 we already had 170 million of investments attracted. And
so it's double in spring.
Yes. So really, and it's not only about investments. Eventually, talent pool expanded, and also turnover of 61% of our startups doubled. So the situation is really good if we are talking about startups. Of course, there were some startups which stopped their activities. But it's also important, the idea, the potential, but as I say, the situation seems good. And from my personal view, I think startups will grow and will continue expanding to global markets. And yeah, so.
Elias, you're a fully digital corporation, right? Google. So for you, it was Christmas, Easter, Black Friday, Cyber Friday, everything at once, right?
I mean, yes. No, I think in short, we've seen, like David was referring to, a tremendous wave of digital acceleration, where I think we've both seen it on sort of the consumer side, where people all of a sudden are stuck in their home and they need to order this thing, they want to buy something. I was giving an example yesterday of an app developed in Korea called Grip, which is doing live stream commerce, which just blew up completely. It was fantastic because it was just the right moment for an app like this, where there is a one-on-one connection that you can build with the seller of the product. There's this trust that some people previously would get in stores or at the specialists, wherever they buy the product or service, that was gone, right? So either you buy on this huge marketplace, or you find another way of sort of pivoting the idea of what are we going to do about one-on-one connection and trust building in the digital world. And this founder, Hannah, just had the right product at the right time, which I think is something else that I was thinking about while my other friends here were speaking, is that I think the last 2 years were a stark reminder of the fact that product market fit is about the product, but also about the market, right? And the market just changed. So some people had the right idea, and all of a sudden the right time came, and they were able to surf the wave. And some other people, like you were referring to, had cash flow problems because it just wasn't the right time. But yeah, I think in short, we've seen this enormous wave of digital acceleration. We've seen lots of companies being forced to go into a remote working mode. Lots of people hating it, lots of people loving it. I think one of the side effects that we will see from just that remote work new normal, so to speak, is that it's going to be easier. This is a prediction. I may be completely wrong, but I think it's going to be easier to raise funds from a place that typically people have never heard of. Because people are now, also investors are now used to the idea of, okay, if this team is distributed all over the world, like I don't care whether they sit in like this tiny village somewhere. They don't have to relocate to the valley to speak to me. I can speak to them online. They're a remote team. They're going to do some great work because the entire world has been able to do some great work in the last 2 years, fully remote.
And this is an amazing trend, because it used to be, in order to actually get funded, for example, well, everyone is looking at America, or at least used to be looking, right? If you're not flying in, forget about it. And even us as a company, we got contacted at least 3 funds from America, and they said like, okay, we'll learn how to invest through Zoom. Now show me what you got, you know? So it's actually an amazing, tremendously good trend for all of the underfunded markets. And I really hope this will stay there. Yeah, but moving on, it used to be that in order to get funded, you have to grow, right? Well, that's the essence of a startup. Not only solve a problem, but to grow and grow extremely fast. Okay, it used to be that the borders are closed. I do know some startups, they had a lot of issues because, for example, if they do B2B, B2B sales cycle through Zoom, hello, how does that work now? It used to be like half a year, now it's a year, right? No one is doing fast decisions, especially when they're sitting at home and having those amazing, beautiful 3 kids that are just destroying your house, you know? You don't do any decisions. So I do know that in B2B cycle, it actually expanded. And we are speaking about that everyone suddenly, they just stopped, looked around, and they understood that they need to work with their own markets. Or we still need to come back and actually show a global scale, a global growth. So how should a founder at this point to actually plan his strategy in order to get funded? There's a lot of capital. Maybe it's enough to work on your own market and fundraise there. David? Because you said like there's a lot of capital available, right?
Yeah. Just a couple of really quick reflections that struck me. This is the first time I'm thinking this. I have never met my cap table. That is such a weird thing. Like I have a cap table of like 14 people, I've met one of them in real life.
My
We did
God.
our whole seed round this spring, and I have yet to meet any one of them. Our lead investors,
Do you at
we
least
haven't
exchange
met.
pictures? I don't know. Do something about it, no?
well, we have our first board meeting next week, post-round, and that is also on Zoom. So that was just one reflection, proving your point that people are investing and forging meaningful relationships without meeting. Second reflection I just wanted to touch on is the notion that it's easy to raise, and just because there's a lot of capital, it's easy to get capital. I would argue that it's much more difficult now because we have a generation of second-time founders across Europe that are taking all the money. And that is why the rounds are increasing in size and making it so much more difficult. Then you have a lot of incubators that obviously do the pre-seed thing for first-time founders, but I think we need to nuance that thing that, you know, there's money everywhere. You put together a deck and you'll get, you know, millions. That is just not true.
Can I jump in on that? Because I think you make a really good point. I think, yes, we've seen the rounds move to a little bit later because there's general, you know, if the world's on fire, there's this feeling that you need to reduce risk. So yes, second-time founder is always a better, safer bet. And the other thing is that it's never been harder for anyone who looks different to raise capital. It's for black founders or female founders, and I was talking about this yesterday, it's super hard. Combined, I think we have about 2-point-something% of the total venture capital money going to women. That's
This
wrong.
is a very big issue. Yes, absolutely.
That's just wrong. And it went the right direction before COVID, really slowly, and during COVID it went the other side. So anyway, I feel very strongly about
So
this.
that's an issue of what? Of trust?
I think it's partly an issue of the makeup of many VC funds. At least that's a number that I know, is that the decision makers are people like you and me, white men.
But we're not
Very-
private bankers
very
that
often.
failed, you know, because usually in venture capital it's private bankers that failed, right?
Right. I don't know. I honestly don't know the reason. The only correlation I can see is that the people who make the decisions are white men very often. They don't have another color. They don't have another gender.
Well, I have an idea. Maybe it's my assumption. In times when everything is unclear, in times when we have so many turbulences in the markets, what do? You rely on people you know, or you rely on people that you can check, and maybe that's an answer. Second-time founders, well, they did already something, and that. But what at this point, what can the first-time founder do? Jean, maybe you have a point here.
Honestly, you know, VC scene, venture capital investors really, I mean, really broad-minded people with kind of a liberal attitude. But they also discriminate a lot, and they discriminate a lot in terms of intelligence. I mean, you know, if you're
Never
gonna invest,
pretend to be more intelligent
Yeah,
in front
I mean,
of the investor,
that-
right?
that-
You
that-
always are more stupid. Remember that.
I mean, if the person is, you know, gay or black or whatever, nobody really cares. But we definitely look for, you know, significantly above average intelligence. That's one of the things that we're looking for. I mean, if you look at the biggest success stories, you know, from Zuckerberg to Gates and Jobs and all that stuff, they're brilliant people. And that's the kind of discrimination actually this industry really puts on, to be honest. I mean, I'm being very frank and open with you.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. But I always like to remind everyone: technology doesn't have gender. Technology doesn't have color.
Yeah,
Technology
sure,
has
sure.
nothing. Technology solves issues, solves problem. So if you're a first-time founder, if you actually spot a problem on the market and you personally you told all the key trends from telemedicine
Yeah,
to
yeah.
I would love to talk about the biotech and when we have the sequenced genomes, right? So just imagine what does this gives us. But coming back, if you're a founder, you found a problem. So what? You have to go to second-time founders. They say like, I give you like what, 11% of equity. Jump in because you have leverage. You become my leverage, right?
that wouldn't work.
Would work.
That will not. I mean, if you really have a good idea and a good team and strong early traction and kind of showing a market with a huge potential, you can get invested. But the thing is, it is true, we have a lot more money pouring into the market now, but venture capital game is really risky investment. And on average, like you invest in 10 startups, let's say, as a fund, only 2 of them actually bring back the return. So you, from the point of making a decision, you accept that most likely that company will fail or not bring up a lot of returns. So you're very picky in that respect because you want to pick this, 2 companies out of 10 that will bring all the returns and make you pay back your LPs and all that.
Why not just spray and pray? Give a bit of money to 100 companies,
Well, it doesn't really work that way. Then you spray everything.
Yes.
So what's going to happen is, I don't think that it will be easy for a mediocre startup or a bad team to raise money. It will be as hard as before, but the good teams and their valuations will rise up a lot. And that's what we're seeing, actually. According to Silicon Valley, the average valuations in all stages increased 20% in the last year. And especially on the early stage, from seed to Series A, valuations increased 27%. So yeah, more money, but still only a few number of startups will get funded, but they will get higher valuations. That's my prediction.
Okay, David, I want to come back to you. And in this case, we tend to always speak about the venture capital. And as we see, venture capital has some issues. We just discussed a few of them, right? And we usually, they usually invest into lookalikes, right? Or in some strange ways. But why do startups always speak about the venture capital? There are so many more ways to actually fundraise. And one of the trends I personally see as a super awesome, that the other founders that raise, they succeed, they instantly reinvest back to the markets by funding other founders, right? Any other ways to fundraise for the guys that are listening to us to know, or at least to consider?
Yeah, of
family
course.
offices?
So I think my favorite is soft funding, non-equity, non-dilutional, non-equity funding. If you live in a place where there are some form of government policies in place to support young companies and startups, that is part of our journey. We received an Innovate UK grant in the UK of £170,000, free money. Which obviously comes from the tax we've paid throughout the years. And 9 months later, we're employing 12 people, and we're paying many times over that in taxes back to the UK government. So my advice for anyone working in policy is give young companies money. That's where you should spray and pray from a government point of view, very early on, because that will come back to you with the same logic as VC logic, actually. Secondly, I'm a huge fan of angels, as you're saying, and I think the cool thing we're seeing now is angel syndicates, where high network individuals pool assets to lead much larger rounds. This has been a trend in the US with AngelList for at least 5 years. That is something that is increasing in size. I think angels are a great way to build your company. And finally, I'm kind of excited about the whole solo GP rockstar VC thing, where it's just this one individual that raises a 650 million fund connected to a very strong brand name, because that gives you distribution if they invest in you. So I think there's a couple of different ways to think about this. There's a dilution aspect, there's a advice aspect, and there's a distribution and marketing aspect.
Okay, but if we speak about funding and if we are not speaking about the venture capital, what else do we have? What can we use? What about crowdfunding? What do you think about it? Will it stay there? Will it grow? Like, for example, we have this hall, each and every individual invests 10, 100 euros.
Yeah. I am such a huge fan of equity crowdfunding, and I hope that something will come to Ukraine soon that is adjacent or similar to what we're seeing with Crowdcube in the UK.
It's super, super good.
That is also connected to policy, by the way. In the UK, you have specific schemes that are tax deductible. So if I invest £10,000, I actually just invest £5,000 and I get £5,000 back from taxes. And if the company goes broke, I get back another £2,000. So if I do a £10,000 ticket, it costs me £3,000. That is a great, great way to support individual, non-rich investing. So equity crowdfunding is great from an individual point of view. As a founder, I am definitely doing a crowdfunding campaign in our next round because it's customer acquisition. If I get 1,000 people to put money in my company, I have 1,000 power users that will use my product
and they will
every
definitely
single
support
day.
you. Yes.
They will become the best ambassadors I can have. So it's an absolute win-win for individuals, for companies, for societies. I think it's here to stay.
Okay, anyone to add anything? Akvile, what is the success of Lithuanian ecosystem and why do you think just in the spring it doubled the investment? What happened?
Yeah, actually the same trend because successful startups, our global startups invest to smaller startups and this is like a circle, you know, once you start with machine and it's unstoppable. Of course, governmental support is also very important and political situation. But yeah, so the same actually trends we see. So bigger startups support smaller startups, and I think it's one of the part of our success of our ecosystem.
Elias, at your reach of the hand, there's so many trends and data and information. And if you would be advising people that want to create or solve a problem at the moment, would you actually offer them to look at the new problems of the world, or you'd say like old school is the best?
I love the way you frame that question.
You know, robotics, space tech, etc., military tech. It's a very, very interesting market. Israel is very good there.
I've been told, yeah. I think, you know, David was discussing a bunch of the big trends that we've seen throughout the last years. I think I think those are hyper interesting sectors with a lot of activity. We've seen a lot of great activity in the education space. We've seen consumer change when it comes to everything related to health and medical. I think, you know, before COVID, it would never have occurred to me to book a test online, go to a test center, and have something sent to me. Right now, I'm being remarketed by all of the companies where I've done a PCR test, for a genetic test, for, you know, whatever it is, allergy tests, and it's in my consideration set now. And for many of the people that I talk to, this is, you know, it's a new way for a consumer to interact with the health and medical space. So I think that trend's going to continue. It's a great space to be active in. And I think just in general, it doesn't matter whether it's new school or old school. If you can tag on to a change in society, if you can solve a problem, like you were saying, it doesn't really matter which space it sits in.
Okay, but how then can we help those amazing founders that are bombarding you on LinkedIn and writing, we are reinventing LinkedIn messaging because it doesn't work. We're doing a new app to solve B2B issues. How can you help them? And say like, please, just look here. There's something interesting on the ground. Look, it's money. Take it.
You're very focused on money today. I like it. We should talk about that.
It's called Christmas presents. I'm just like, it just blows my mind, you know?
Yeah. So I think one thing that I would like to add to the overall sort of big problem space where there's going to be a lot of activity is, somebody said recently that the first, whatever, billionaire, trillionaire is gonna be active in the climate space. that's the biggest problem staring us in the eyes, right? And it's staring all of us in the eyes. We start to see little just climatic events where maybe the town that you live in all of a sudden flooded for the first time, or you have like a peak temperature that is hit in one of the regions that you go on holiday. This is going to continue. This is real, and I think we need policy, but we also need smart entrepreneurs to focus on this space and to do their little bits in the products and services that get developed to help solve this problem.
I'm just thinking now, if you're a founder and you're getting 150K or 200K pre-seed, and can you solve the flooding problem with this? No. Or do you? Or you will create another app that will be installed in some e-shop, and if you buy sneakers, they will plant a tree. Because this is what Europe does at the moment, right? All the sustainability and Green Deal startups, they end up in planting trees. Don't plant trees, it's enough of them, right? Maybe we should be looking at a bit different way, or from a bit different corner. Jean, does it forces your heart to beat faster when a person comes in and say, like, we are a sustainable startup? Sustainability, what the fuck
Honestly,
is that?
like it changed a lot because I'm in the investment side since 2014. And like 15, 16, still green tech wasn't much of an interest to investors, to be perfectly honest. But this trend recently accelerated a lot. I think the fires starting from Australia, and then we had all over
It's like,
Europe
do you need
and
any more
Turkey.
proof that something is happening with the planet?
And
It's what, September, it's +4, right? No, nothing is happening. It's usual. It's September.
yeah, so this is how human, reaction is. I mean, the same applies to the pandemic as well. The world wasn't prepared for that, but many people warned about a possible pandemic and all that. This same thing really applies to climate change, and I think we're gonna see a lot of increase. I mean, in Germany, many people died due to flooding, and it's unbelievable.
It happened in 20 minutes. Yeah, I have a friend there.
It's happening in Germany,
Crazy.
with a brilliant infrastructure and all that stuff. So we're gonna see a lot of venture dollars into that. But the problem is actually you touched on a very good point, because like the individual effort is kind of staying limited. I mean, you can start a mobile app startup with a few users and grow, but if you're trying to bring up a really disruptive new green tech on the market, you really have to go through a lot of R&D, product development and all that stuff. That requires really massive one-off investment. And here the governments or big corporations come into place. I mean, it's really, in most cases, beyond the capabilities of regional VCs, I would say, because really significant chunk of money should be put in. But I think Europe has very good grant schemes. I think that's a European advantage, like Horizon program and all that stuff, that actually give some teams really good start, a head-on start onto that. So I definitely agree. We're going to see a lot of that more in the coming days.
Yeah, me too. How is everyone else thinking about the Green Deal, European Green Deal, or at least sustainability as a topic? I think it's here to stay, honestly. Right?
Is that a question?
Yep.
If the Green Deal is here to stay?
Yeah. Okay, Europe will
No.
spend $1 trillion. What happened then?
Yeah, so I think I've been in politics.
You've been.
I've been in politics, yes.
And you left.
And yes. And
Oh my God, okay.
Here comes some advice. Like I spoke with people about how to push, climate progress. And my advice was, don't call it climate, call it infrastructure. And as long as you call it infrastructure, you can make anything happen, and people will pay for it. So I think if we're talking about climate tech or green tech, we're really talking about a much needed rebuilding of infrastructure, and there will be more than enough funding and revenue available when it comes to that. So yeah, no, it's a safe bet. And speaking of very interesting sectors, I would say GovTech, all things GovTech are very, very exciting to follow. like the most interesting B2B SaaS stuff is happening in the GovTech space. And that is also adjacent to infrastructure and climate. Yeah.
That's amazing, and you brought us to our last episode of this, season finale. So, guys, just for everyone to bring something out of this discussion or a panel, we can continue till the morning. I have questions, but the thing is, Ukrainian ecosystem, the founders, we just basically told the very safe bet. It's Green Deal, sustainability, it's here to stay. Then we discussed about the venture problems, right? So, but there are so many other ways to do. Then Jean himself, he said like a lot of things that were catalyzed during the COVID, the pandemics, etc. So there's so many ways, and there's so much capital deployed. Euro or dollar is so cheap at the moment, and basically no one is actually counting how much money being poured. The only thing they want to see volume, and they want to see something happening, right? They need the movement. So Jean, maybe let's start from you. What would be your, let's say, three key things you'd like everyone to remember or to bring home and think about, or if they, for example, they're thinking about creating something, where should they start?
I mean, first of all, as we all agreed, we are in a new market now. I mean, pandemic really changed many things, particularly human behavior and perception. So you have to adjust your ideas or startups or whatever you have in mind according to that. That's number one. The second one is, yeah, more money is available, but you still have to go through the really key requirements of investors looking for. Like, you have to have a really good team complementing each other. You have to have signs of strong early traction and a really good product and a market that can bring up a huge potential that will bring the angel or the VC a lot of multiplier to save the rest of the portfolio. So that part didn't change. But I think it's a really great time to take on and to start looking into that, because this pandemic really catalyzed that change. And now, all industries are turning into digital. Like, even if you're kind of an old-fashioned,
Walmart, even Walmart are having the digital services.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the dark stores, for instance. Like, these guys are delivering stuff in 10 minutes, and they have really tiny bits of warehouses inside the city. So there is so much space for further expansion and disruption at the moment. So I think it's a great time to be a founder just now. I mean, it's the time. If you've been thinking about an idea for a while, I think it's worth to give it a go just now.
Yeah, quit the job, become unstable, panic, get anxiety, die. That's what was offered, right?
Exactly.
Okay, Akvile, what are your key takeaways, and what would you recommend everyone to think about while going home?
Well, I'm not so very familiarized with Ukrainian ecosystem, not yet, but I think really we recently saw interest from investors when we talk really in life sciences and those sustainability green tech sectors. Also, GovTech is really a trend today. And what I can offer, because Startup Lithuania is not an investor, we don't do sales, so we just like a facilitator, governmental agency. So what I could offer is, like, if you are thinking of having a startup and you have already some idea, like prototype, some traction, and wondering to scale to European market and entering European market, so we have Startup Visa program for that, and which was launched in 2017 and meant for non-EU startup founders to. It's like a fast track to Lithuanian startup ecosystem. And as you know, once you enter EU, you have a whole market there, which actually in 2021 estimates now like 700 million of population. So, yeah, so if you are thinking of really entering European market, I believe like Lithuania could be gates to Europe for you. So.
and $1 trillion with the grants, right? And if you represent an ecosystem, I believe Akvile, they could also approach you for the cooperation, because the only thing that I started to believe during the pandemics is cooperate, co-create, do it together. You don't have to take everything for yourself. David, what would be last bits of you on this stage?
I don't know why this just came to me. I feel
We're
that
giving you so many good ideas.
we need
oh my
to.
God.
No, hot take incoming, a rant incoming. I feel that I was thinking, what was the narrative before the pandemic, and how do we need to change the narrative?
Everyone lives in Bali, everyone's full of shit, they don't know what they do, they are bored, nothing is happening, and basically no problems in life, so people started to create their own problems.
Possibly, yeah, that was a better rant. I was thinking about one of the tenets of our industry, which is disrupting markets. And everyone always gets the question, like, what market are you disrupting? What market are you disrupting? And I'm not sure, I'm not sure that's a fresh idea. I think that's an idea we should leave behind us. Like the idea of disrupting markets and just shifting value from one place to the other. I'm heavily influenced by the idea of creating new markets, like identifying nascent markets that almost don't exist, and creating those markets. And of course, I'm biased because I'm building an app, a marketplace, a platform that creates a new market, which is conversations on demand. The idea of having a 5-minute conversation with someone, that does not exist today. You cannot buy or sell that. It is something that we are unlocking and creating. And to be frank, I don't know if it's going to work, but at least we're trying to create a new market. And I have no idea what market we are part of. I have no idea what market we are disrupting. I have no idea of who my competitors are. Please do not invest in me. But I know we're building something completely new. And that is what I think we need post-pandemic. We need people creating new markets rather than just disrupting an old market and moving $1 billion from here to here.
And then bringing the $1 billion back, right? Amazon is opening offline shops. Oh my God, that's such an innovation, right? Okay, thank you so much, David, for your few sentences. And Elias, it's my pleasure to give you a chance to wrap it up.
Thank you. I think the number one thing I would say is, and sort of coming back to what you were saying, think about what market you can build that fits with the societal trends that we see in front of us. And the climate change topic that we talked about is one. Just try to put yourself in the perspective of, if we look back at 50 years from now, if we look back at what was the wave that we were going through back then, what was sort of the defining couple of words about the era that we lived in, if you look back, it always makes a lot of sense. It's like, oh yeah, these guys built that business because that was going on. It's an incredible hard thing to do when you're living it, obviously, but there are some things that are staring us in the eye. So I think number one is, just be conscious of those things, and build something that can contribute to those larger societal trends that we see. The second thing I would say is, I keep on coming back to diversity. Diversity in your founding team, diversity in your company is good business sense. It makes a lot of sense. Diverse teams are more innovative. Diverse large corporations make a lot more money than non-diverse large corporations. So there's just, the evidence, again, is staring us in the eye. So if I was looking for my co-founder, it would not be someone who looks like me. If I was building my management team, I would build a very diverse management team with all of the problems that come with that, because sometimes they're harder to find, sometimes they're harder to get along, but the innovations that you get from a diverse team and sort of the business success, it makes it all worth it. And I think the third thing that I would say is, with all of this talk about what is the idea, what is the sector we want to be in, what is the market, let's just not forget to execute really fucking well. Just set goals for your company and just like focus on the execution, because I think we all notice so much talk about ideas still. Ideas don't fucking matter.
Ideas are cheap, and in this case, I usually tell, I have been speaking to students, in universities, they're like, my favorite website is startupgraveyard.com. Go and check it. Your idea was done, it failed, there's no more. That's it. Okay. And
You're such a great motivator.
Yeah, but it is. It's not about the idea, it's about the execution. Ideas are cheap, just like on every corner. And just to double up on what Elias said, guys, you definitely have to check the researches. Researchers prove if you have a board, if you have a C-level management, I'm not saying like this, it's just an example. Those companies that invited women, for example, it doesn't have to be 50-50, but they faced significant change in income because we are all biased. We were always biased. We will be biased. That's why we need to bring in as many different people as we can in order to actually create something beautiful. And maybe the last bit from my own perspective, I'd say don't focus on being a unicorn. Unicorns are no more. Focus on bringing actual change. Focus on bringing actual impact. And please do something good for this planet, because there's so many bad things in this life, right? Absolutely. Okay, so I'd like to ask for a big round of applause for my fellow panelists, and that was Elias, Veris, David Orlic, Jean Saracoglu, and Akvile Dobromilskyte. Thank you so much for being here, and hopefully, at least we gave you one or two ideas to think about. We're gonna